Our next session is all about content, and just speaking of content, I mentioned the amount of support that we'd had from Captivate earlier on, but another company that has really given this event super support from day one is Content Cal. They're out there. Give us a wave, Content Cal, because Andy's there. Make sure you do go and talk to Andy and Hayley as well. They've been such big supporters of Marketed Live. They've sponsored it for the entirety that it's been around. And if you don't know what it is, it's a marketing content planning tool. Yes, it allows you to schedule your content and publish it across multiple platforms, but it also allows you to plan campaigns. It's bigger than that. You can do responses, you can plan things for your clients. And what I love most about it, for me, and the way that we work, is that it allows some of that transparency which I spoke about at the beginning with our clients. They can log in, they can see what content they're going to post, they can add comments, they can review it. I know there's a few of our clients here today, and I'm sure they would agree that that's helpful in terms of working with a business like ours, being able to provide that feedback for us. So if you go and see them today before you leave today, they are offering a 20% discount on anyone that's here today, so do go in and talk to them. That would be hugely appreciated, and like I said, I can't really recommend it enough. So content, we all create content, lots of it, and it is a big focus of marketing today. Different formats, different results, but what do you need to pay attention to? Well, in our next session, we're going to just chat through some of the ideas with a number of people who can give us some views on that. This is basically the Graham Norton slot, but without the wine. We've got three panellists who are going to join me for a little bit of a chat. We've got James Dixon from Cartwright Communications. We've got Geordie, again I'm going to invite you back onto the stage, and we've got Natalie Hayley from Hot Content. Please give them a cheer. I'd like to start off just by giving you the opportunity to just introduce who you are to the people out there. Give us a little bit of an intro, who you are, what you do. You can start, Natalie. Let me have a look. There's a light on it. Sing and try it out.
Well, can I just start off by saying thank you for introducing the low chairs this year. I was worried that I would have to ask for a leg up, because I seem to remember last year.
They were high, weren't they? I couldn't get on them either.
Yeah.
Thank you, Carl.
So, yeah, I'm Natalie. My business is Hot Content, and I basically help content creators publish, repurpose and promote their content, whether that's a podcast, whether it's video content, or whether it's blog content.
My name is James Dixon. I'm Head of Digital at Cartwright Communications, which is a PR and marketing agency based in the East Midlands, and I help support businesses, both B2B and B2C, with their content.
And hello, I'm Geordie. I'm an account manager. And I work at Wieden & Kennedy, so deliver above-the-line campaigns, social, press, radio, TV, across big brands.
Thank you. Let's start with you, actually, as you've got the mic, Geordie. I want to just pick up on a couple of things that were said in your talk, really. When smaller businesses are creating content, you've mentioned about some of the things to think about. Is there anything to really avoid as a small business?
I'd avoid doing it if there's only white people in your team, because you need a little bit of, you need diversity, genuinely, and it might not be applicable to your business or your business strategy, and that is fine, but your teams you need to first look at your teams and who are going to be creating content and where you're pushing that content out. So I think firstly starting with diversifying your own teams, and then look at which audiences you're going to be speaking to.
And would you say then that for a small business that maybe doesn't have the diversity in the team, which may not be their fault, it might just be how they operate, would you suggest steering clear of certain clients or brands, or representing certain businesses?
Yeah, I think it's not just about trying to go after like Muslim consumers if you believe that there is an opportunity there. I think, as someone in the crowd said, you have to start with research and making sure that you're doing a huge amount of research into those groups and what the opportunities are and what interests them before you even begin to start playing in that field. It depends where you're based. For a lot of the bigger, for those that are based in bigger cities, there is a higher percentage of different ethnic and cultural groups in those areas. So it is worth considering, am I currently thinking about these groups in my strategies, or have they broadly remained on the sidelines up until now? I think it's up to you to work out whether you think that you want to begin focusing on being more inclusive, and whether that fits into your wider strategy and your wider plan.
There's a number of sort of PR disasters, aren't there, with some of this where people have got it wrong. I want to ask James, in your line of work to do with PR, can you identify any particular things to do or things to avoid in terms of PR when people are trying to get visibility for their brand that avoid some of those pitfalls? I'm not necessarily talking just about diversity here, but things that a business should try and avoid when reaching out to maybe publications or anything like that.
I think it's really important not to get too enamoured with your own brainstorm sometimes. If you're thinking you're in a closed room, there's maybe 10, 15 of you throwing ideas around, that idea could seem really powerful at the time. And maybe you just need to take a little step back and sense check it before going out. Check with some of your customers or some peers that you know, and really make sure, particularly if you're working in any area which is potentially controversial, potentially with a political element or anything to do with accessibility or diversity, is to really make sure that you're not saying anything inadvertent, and that your messaging is really crisp and tight.
So, I mean, again, Geordie, you showed some examples there about things like, did it say like white is purity or something like that? It's, when you look at it objectively, you kind of think, but I guess at some point someone would have had that meeting where someone just came up with it, and you can inadvertently cover those that end up doing that, I guess.
Yeah, I think there was quite a good example a few years ago. Cadbury's were running an on-pack promotion because they were trying to engage with schools and get people more healthy and fit, and it was targeted at children. But they did need to do a little bit of basic maths. Basically, it was providing school equipment for schools based on the number of products that were bought. The problem is that the numbers were way too high, and essentially you'd have to get kids would have to get type 2 diabetes to get the equipment, which is bad from a PR point of view. Mm-hmm. So it's just make it so, the great idea, but if they'd just taken that idea out of the room and sense checked it and gone, are we really expecting kids to eat 1,000 chocolate bars before we provide like a swing ball or whatever it was? Then that could get picked up.
So it almost seems to me as though there needs to be some kind of process here in terms of, here's the idea, there's got to be something in the middle between actually launching a campaign. Any suggestions from you guys as to what that process needs to look like, apart from bringing in different people?
I mean, it does just need to involve different people and different perspectives, because the tighter the creative group, the more likely that there's going to be an issue that they don't spot. So where you can bring in more people, or if you can't bring in people easily, time is really great. Don't rush to things. Now, I know a lot of the problems come from the PR world when people are working in like a live or dynamic environment and responding to something on social media where you can't necessarily build in that time, but just build in time for different voices or different perspectives. I've definitely felt very strongly and differently about campaigns that I've worked on one afternoon on a brainstorm, and then come in the next day and I'm like, no, we need to do something different. I've spotted a problem. So
it's like getting out of that thought bubble. I guess, I mean, we've all been in those meetings, right, where you're going, oh yeah, that's fantastic, let's do that, white power or something. I mean, no, hang on, I've not been in those meetings, but what I'm saying is, but wind it in, it's getting late. but it's very easy. You can just see, like I said, that white is purity or something, it going down that road. So time, getting involvement in other people. From a PR perspective, so this is one that I always seem to come across, and I use this in examples when I run workshops and stuff, is, and this applies to small businesses, the bit of PR that people send out to newspapers that goes, we've opened a new office, or we have moved. Who gives a shit? Nobody, right? So that is the same thing, isn't it? It's like not believing your own hype.
I guess so. It is about being audience-centric and, making sure that it's not just, it's not what you're saying, telling someone isn't just worthy, that it's actually newsworthy.
Mm-hmm.
And for some things, some business listings, some B2, letting people know about an office move is actually important, but it's probably not something that you want to kind of make a pinned tweet about and kind of make that the centerpiece of all your content. It might just be a press release and a news story.
Natalie, how would you write a piece of content about a new office?
I might struggle, actually.
You might struggle.
I might struggle.
What sort of content do you feel is working? Because you do a lot of work with different brands and different people, which I guess is quite mixed. Are you seeing any similarities in the type of content or content forms that work at the moment?
I think at the moment a big thing is, and I think a few people have kind of touched upon it today, is the really personalised content. I think that's what I see out of all of my clients that's really having a big effect. So things like this one-to-one type content, so using something such as Bonjoro to send a quick personalised video. In fact, I was just talking to someone earlier today who was saying how amazing it was, and Kenda as well, you were talking to them, and he was saying how he'd had a connection request on LinkedIn, and instead of just, some text or whatever on a message, this guy had just been walking down the street and recorded a little video. And that feeling that this guy got when he received that stayed with him. He was like, that's amazing. But yeah, these kind of personalised one-to-one pieces of content are what's really kind of moving the needle, I think.
Because it touches that person.
Yeah, it just takes you aback, doesn't it? We've all had those moments where we're like, oh God, they've actually taken the time to do that. And I think in this kind of world that we're living in and this busy kind of online world, it's that's really going to make you stand out and really make an impact.
That's really interesting, because I guess when big brands do like big campaigns and are controversial, it's like the shock factor of that, or the impact that has. And yet what we're saying is that you can get a similar impact, but on a very individual level, if you make the effort to go and do that.
Yeah, I've seen people use it quite effectively, to actually get more sales as well. So it's great when it comes to kind of making those powerful connections. But Andrew and Pete, for example, who aren't here today but normally are, gave away a great tip in a recent video, which was about when we're talking about our email marketing, really looking at those people who are actually opening our emails, looking at the people who always click on our emails, and instead of just emailing them back, why not send them a quick Bonjoro or whatever, just to really push them over the line and get them to sign up for your course or whatever it is you want them to do. It can be really powerful.
So almost thinking back to Teresa's diagram there with all the different processes and sort of moving people along, choosing something that helps them do that. So on a similar sort of subject really, just thinking about trust, how can we use content to build trust in our audiences?
Well, for me personally, I think it comes back to the personalisation, but almost in reverse. So whichever form of content that's going to resonate most with your audience is going to differ depending on what industry and what type of business you have, and depending on your personality as well. But whatever content form you choose, it's imperative that you inject your personality into it in order for people to start to build that relationship with you and start to trust you. So it's easier with some forms of content than others. So for example, I chose to do a podcast for myself personally because I think that when I listen to other people's podcasts, it's quite an intimate experience. You can spend half an hour to an hour with literally somebody's voice in your ear. Video, of course, is another great way. But even with blog content, just making sure that it's not a dry piece of content and that you are injecting you into that piece of content. Speaking, writing the way that you speak, using phrases that you would use, so that when somebody reads that piece of content, they can almost hear you say it. I think that really helps build a lot of trust.
Amazing, thank you. James, I wonder, what do you think the barriers are then to people trusting content that people put out there?
I mean, one of the big barriers is us, is in that people are inherently suspicious of us because they know that we're trying to sell them something, and that automatically gets people's guard up. And we are in their feeds being disruptive, sometimes without getting that permission in the first place to be there. So one of the ways that I like to approach looking at content from a trust point of view is sort of co-opting user-generated content, the stuff that's out there generally, and that can be sort of reviews, but it also can just be general sort of gripes and complaints, because no one expects your business to be perfect, but they expect someone to sort of be there at the end of the keyboard to solve any problems that there are. And one of my big bugbears is community managers trying to drive all kind of social interaction into private comms channels. Because even if you solve that person's problem, you haven't solved the problem for the 10 people who haven't asked about that problem yet, and everyone else who's part of your community doesn't know that you've solved their problem. And so you've taken a potential win, a potential quite broad win of showing that you're a listening, understanding company that sorts things out when there's issues, and turning it into a very, very narrow win where you've sorted out one person's problem.
I think that's actually a really important point, because it's like closing the loop, isn't it? If someone's made a complaint in a very public forum, if you don't come and close that loop back, you have no way of demonstrating that you do actually care and that you've resolved that issue, and like you say, other people can then see how that was resolved, right?
Yeah, it's just, I understand there's some times where you might need to do some authorization or some validation in terms of, did this person actually buy from you? And that's fine then to take that pride. But if they're just saying that something's wrong with your website, or I can't buy X product in X store, there's no need to drive private.
Just thinking about user-generated content for a moment, I'm just going to ask Geordie, is user-generated content a way to help with authenticity around some of the issues that you were talking about?
I think actually it's more around what is that company doing to support communities and things that I care about. So you're looking at ASOS, and they have started to invest in electric cars now and vans for deliveries, and they're testing that out. And we know that a lot of our audience is really concerned about environmental crisis. So often when I see content, the first thing I want to know is what that business or brand is actually doing for issues beyond their immediate, beyond their comms. And I think that is something that helps to build a bit more trust.
So things like, I guess, just making your logo rainbow in Pride Month, it just isn't enough.
Yeah, exactly. I think increasingly people are seeing companies doing gimmicky stunts, and Rainbow Pride's the perfect example. Like last year, every single brand turned their but then you begin to hear about stories that within their companies they're facing like issues around anti-trans, transphobic language and stuff like this, and so people are like, that's inauthentic. So I feel like increasingly we're seeing just loads of comms being pushed in front of us. But actually, what do our consumers care about, and how can we help? How can we show that we are supporting, communities on the ground?
Are there any topics? Because I think just looking at timing, are there any topics quickly before we finish that are no-nos at the moment? We'll go across all of you to see what your experience is.
Topics in terms of.
Well, in terms of content, things that we should avoid. I mean, the one that kind of stands to mind is like Brexit, some companies that will be appropriate to, others it won't be. Are there any really toxic pieces of content? Or does it depend?
I guess Brexit is it's just going to divide people further. So that feels like something you will want to stray away from. But Yeah, I think so. I'm not really sure.
How about from a PR point of view? What's potentially bad PR?
I mean, for all time, it's sort of politics and religion, isn't it? But I mean, I'm sort of in two minds about Brexit. Like, if you have a real strong proposition and a side that's obvious if you can get 48% or 52% of the country to be passionate advocates for you, I mean, that's more than a lot of the segmentations that we're going for. So I think it only makes sense in certain circumstances. But for me, it's the weak positions, it's the inauthenticity, it's the people using these issues just to fill a slot in a content calendar. You know, if you're putting a picture of like women working in your office on International Women's Day, and you're a big company, someone is going to be Googling your gender pay report. And if it doesn't, if what your actions don't match your words, that's when you get into all sorts of sort of online PR crises around hypocrisy.
Okay, and Natalie, we'll end with you.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could argue that there is no content no-nos as long as what you're talking about is relevant and of interest to your audience. So it is going to depend, again, from industry to industry. It's not so much a topic no-no, but one big no-no I would say is, in terms of content, is creating content for your peers and not your customers.
Okay.
So we see that a lot. You know,
It's easy to do, right?
it is very, very easy to do, especially when you know your topic and your industry inside out. But you see it a lot in certain industries such as accountancy and things like that, where, you know, you'll read a piece of content and it really is not necessarily designed to show off everything everybody knows, but it's not focused towards the customer, and sometimes we can overcomplicate things and it should just all come back to simplicity. But yeah, in some respects there is no no-nos, it's just making sure it's relevant and of interest to your audience.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone. I know it's a relatively short session, but I think you've really given us some really good insights into different bits and a helpful discussion. So, ladies and gentlemen, our panel.